live.
Straight from the manger, saved by the Savior. Love, that's a layup. Temptation, couldn't even phase him. 40 days and nights and still proclaiming the kingdom. Back by the King of Kings, little loves. Every time we get involved, it's a dub. By the fall, ain't no drug. It ain't even close, how love. Faith, 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 faith. Ain't even close, how love. Faith, 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 favor. Tiptoeing with this faith of mine. Big stepper, yeah, yeah. Big stepper. Big stepper, yeah. Back by the King of Kings, little loves. Every time we get involved, it's a dub. It's a dub by the fall, ain't no drug. It ain't even close, oh Lord. It ain't even close. It ain't even close, oh Lord. It ain't even close. All praise to the Most High. It ain't even close. It ain't even close. It ain't even close. No.
Hello, everybody, and thank y'all for joining us tonight on Cutting Through the Culture. We haven't been live in a very long time, and I imagine that's why we only have 83 people joining us so far, but, you know, the number doesn't matter. I'm just kind of glad to be back in the chair. It's been a long time coming, so very excited to get into this year, to get into the topics that this year will bring us. I have a lot of exciting projects coming up that I can't wait to tell you all about. So let's go ahead and start bringing in our panelists. Let's start with Quisha King. How are you today, Quisha? You're muted. There you are.
Happy New Year, everybody!
Same.
Happy New Year! I missed you guys. I will say I was very happy for the break. I will say, because let me just run it down for you. I got married in October. We celebrated Thanksgiving. We moved twice, once moving Antonio from his house to mine, and then from mine to ours, and Christmas and New Year's, family, all the things. Whoo! I needed the break, but your girl is back. Have a new setup. You know, it's still coming together, but it's very cute. Yes, we have some gold lush down there. And that unicorn that was given to me at our wedding by Antonio's best man, because his best man was like, to find the kind of woman that Antonio wanted, he was like, she's got to be a unicorn. And so I got the unicorn trophy at the wedding. You know, just some pictures and things. So we're changing things, moving on up. But I am excited to talk about what is coming up in 2025. It's a lot. I think there's a lot to discuss. They're making a big deal about MLK, the celebration of Martin Luther King Day, and Trump's inauguration. So that's interesting. So yeah, we got a lot to talk about.
Indeed. Quisha got a whole facelift as far as her setup is concerned. You're not glitching. Your audio sounds good.
Oh, your girl got some better internet. We're on fiber now. Oh, Antonio has totally upgraded my life. Okay.
Big things are happening. Let's go ahead and bring up Blanche. I know that the train didn't stop for Blanche. He kept right on going. So, hi there, Blanche.
What's up, y'all? What's going on?
Cool. How did you rein in the new year? Or ring in? Is it ring in? Ring in. How did you ring in the new year? I said rein in. How did you ring in the new year?
Just like any other
day. Any other morning?
Yeah. Nothing really changed, you know.
Blanche was in bed by 9 p.m.
You know what I mean? I ain't do nothing on Eve.
Had his jammy jams on. Cool. Have you went back to California yet?
No. I told you I wanted to wait till the smoke cleared.
Oh yeah. Duh. How did I?
Not that smoke. I'm talking about the Trump smoke. You know.
Oh,
I gotta calm down first. No, I'm saying they gotta calm down.
I thought you were making a racist comment because you know smoke is another name for black folks. It's another slur.
Yeah.
For black folks. You didn't know that, Quisha?
I've heard that before. They'll be like, or people say, you know, it's getting dark in the room. It's a little smoky in here, everybody.
That's what happened to Ruth's Chris. I used to love going to Ruth's Chris, but it got a little smoky in there.
Got a little smoky.
After COVID, you go in Ruth's Chris now, and people are in shorts. And I think me and Chuck and Michelle were talking about this when they came to Jacksonville. But yeah, people are in shorts, and you got the Jay-Z glob hair. I mean, you don't have to wear a jacket anymore. Like, it's totally different. Yeah,
got a little dark in there. And then we have Mr. Chuck Littleton. How are you today, Chuck?
What up, Mike? You all right?
I'm doing fine. I'm quite dandy.
Yeah.
How did you usher in the new year?
Well, I mean, on New Year's Eve, me and my wife just went out to dinner. That was it. And we came back slightly before midnight and brought the new year in with the kids. Yeah, that was it, man. Chill for a little bit. And yeah. End up going to bed a little after 12, probably maybe stayed up for maybe like an hour or two, maybe. But yeah, because it's like a tradition. Me and my wife, we like to do a nice dinner on New Year's Eve. And it's getting easier too. My oldest daughter's still in the house, getting older. You know, I have kind of like a in-house babysitter now. My kids aren't as young as they used to be. So we were able to skate off for a couple of hours. Go to a nice restaurant, spend a few hundred on dinner, come home, you know. Yeah.
You know, spend a few stacks on dinner.
That's right.
Just a little something.
It's a little something. You know, Chad, you might want to explain to the public. First of all, we were late because of you. And
Yeah, we'll
yes.
get to that. We'll get to that.
For the
Yeah, we'll get to that later. No, we'll get to that later. We'll save that for later.
save it.
So in that vein, so this year, as you can see, this show tonight is a bit informal. We don't have an agenda, but I do want to kind of get into, first and foremost, some of the big things that each person in the panelist have planned for the year. Even if you don't have anything planned, like what are some of your expectations? What are some of the things you would like to do? What are some of the goals that you would want to set? Let's go ahead and start with you, Blanche.
I don't know why you started with me. I don't know yet what I want to do. I mean, I hope this year is prosperous. Everything goes well. But
Marriage?
I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm married to the game and I'm faithful. but
married to these streets.
I don't know about marriage. Yeah. But I hope everything goes well this year. I don't know yet, honestly. I'm just excited to be alive.
Just taking things as they come, huh?
Yeah, one day at a time. So
that's the way it ought to be. That's the way it ought to be. Doesn't the Bible talk about that? About how the fool?
Yeah.
It says tomorrow I'll do this or tomorrow I'll do that, and they don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. That's not to say that it's foolish to plan. You know what I mean? It's foolish to be discerning in how you move and how you act. It's not saying YOLO. You know what I mean?
We just don't worry about tomorrow. We just not worried. Right. We plan.
There you go. There you go. There you go. What about you, Quisha?
Oh, so I am going to get back focused on my channel now that my personal life is, we're getting settled, because last year, I was in love. I wasn't really trying, the content came later. I was like, I'm going to see my man. So now that we are all together, focusing on my channel, I hope to build it to, what did I say? I think I said 100,000 subscribers. I want to do some stuff with Antonio. He's so smart and wise and stuff, and he's his third book is coming out in August, I believe. So he's going to be talking about some of those things, and he wants me to talk about it with him. So I'll be doing that, being a wife and mom and doing all that stuff. I love taking care of my family. And so sometimes I feel like I have to be pulled away from it's crazy. This is going to sound crazy, cleaning and getting the dishes and stuff. And it's like, oh, but I want my home to be, all nice and stuff. So, just getting everybody.
Why does that sound crazy?
Because who really wants to be cleaning and doing that? But there is I
said a wife, a good one, especially.
Oh, yeah, I guess so, right? But
the side chick should be cooking and cleaning. What are we talking about?
There's a joy with cleaning our home and preparing, meals. And my husband loves my cooking, so he's like, oh, so I made gumbo on Christmas.
You can cook, Quisha?
Honey, they asked me, can I cook?
So, we thought you were a modern woman, Quisha. You can cook. We don't know.
I can cook. Y'all, you got to remember, I'm half Southern, half Northern. I grew up until 13 in Lake City, Florida, which is country. My family, we cooks, we gets downs in the kitchen. And so I had made gumbo a couple of years ago, and it was the bomb. Now, mind you, I've never tasted Louisiana gumbo. I've never tried it, but I found this fantastic recipe, and Antonio's like, it would be good with some gumbo. Now, he's from Mississippi, which is very close. The part of Mississippi that he's from is very close to Louisiana, and so good food like gumbo, shrimp, and all that kind of stuff he's very familiar with. So he was like, okay, now I'm going to tell you if this gumbo is trash. And trust me, he would. He's like, the wife card about to be pulled if you mess up this gumbo. I'm like, I'm telling you, my gumbo is the bomb. He tried it. The crowd went wild. They all loved it. He took some to the barbershop, and he was like letting some of his other friends that are from that area. They tried it. 10 out of 10. That's what those are their words, not mine. So, but I love, feeding my family, cooking for them, making sure that they have good food and healthy food and stuff like that, and all that stuff. So I'm right now in this transition. I'm like, I want to be cleaning. I want to be decorating. I want to be, cooking and doing stuff like that. So it's like trying to balance all that. But I have some pretty lofty goals for 2025. I think God is about to show up and show out.
How are the kids? The kids good?
The kids are great. The kids are good. It's tough blending a family. It's not easy, but I think we're doing a really good job. Our kids are, good kids. So, and, they're not disrespectful or anything like that, but just, bringing it all together, and you're still individuals and stuff, and you have a culture of how you do things and how, other people are used to doing things. The great thing about Antonio is he loves his children, obviously, but he's always making sure that I'm good, if you good, we good, like everything is good. So, it's not no problems with, blending a family, but I think it's been pretty easy. It's been, considering everything, it's been pretty easy. So,
Cool. Shout out to Really, our first super chat of 2025. Thank you. Happy New Year, CTTC in chat. You see how they're attacking Trump already? Elon is president. Shaking my head. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that here in a bit. Thank you for the super. And then Jesus loves you. God bless the chat. Quisha, Chad, Blanchard, and Chuck. Thank you. Really appreciate it. So I'm excited about this year. I made an announcement on my IG last week or the week before last, where I basically told my subscribers that are on IG that I've decided to just go all in on filmmaking. As many of you know, I own a plumbing company, and the idea is to basically transition out of that plumbing company into doing full-time filmmaking. Not only filmmaking, but also publishing books for children, students, and adults as well. So I'm excited about that. I'm beginning to lay the groundwork to make that transition. It's funny that as soon as I made that announcement, like not even a day or two later, I found out that our company was rewarded another Chipotle they were supposed to be building near Austin. So yeah, I mean, the projects are still going to keep coming in. We have a very loyal customer base, so I'm grateful for that. And I don't think I'll ever lose that kind of blue collar bone that I have. It's what I was raised with, and I think a well-rounded man knows how to use his hands as well as his mind. So I'm very excited about just getting into just full-time filmmaking. I have a lot of projects that are on the horizon. One, my hope is to release on January 20th, featuring Chuck Littleton, who you see here on the panel, myself, Vince Everett Ellison, and then you'll see a couple of appearances from some other folks as well. And the film will focus primarily on not only who was Martin Luther King really, but what was the background that groomed Martin Luther King. And it's necessary to drop it on Martin Luther King Day for obvious reasons. I think 2027 is going to be a big year. Trump is going to be in office in 2027 if he's still breathing by that time. But I don't know. I mean, when I look at Trump's track record in terms of how he in terms of how he panders to the kings and panders to the whole civil rights mindset, I don't know. Who knows what will happen come 2027? But I know I'll do my due diligence in terms of trying to shed light to the truth. I want to also do another project called The Myth of Blackness, where we look at the state of modern Black culture and how we got here. And my desire is for that film to feature everybody you see here on this panel, in addition to some others. So I'm also going to do a project on FDR featuring Dr. Mary Graybar. She wrote a book that's being released later this month, along with other FDR scholars. Yeah, there's a lot of things on the horizon. I do want to play for you all just a 1-minute clip from the.
What about my new year? What about my plans this year?
No, we're gonna. I figured you were going to say something about. I figured you were going to say something about this. That's why I said.
I'll just mess with you, man. Go ahead, do your thing.
It's only a minute long. I mean, do you want to go right now?
No, go ahead, do you?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm chilling.
Where to go? Check threw me off.
Oh, my bad.
Roll. No, you're good. Okay, here we go.
You said it was informal tonight, so.
Is the state of modern conservatism in America?
They're demon rats.
That ain't it.
Demon rats.
Demon rats.
Not Democrats, demon rats.
You know what? Since I have this up, I'm going to go ahead and play it. It's not what I intended to play, but what? Here we go. What is the state of modern conservatism in America?
They're demon rats.
No, he's a rhino.
Is it strong and reliable, capable of preserving our constitutional republic? Or is it weak, pathetic, and unprincipled?
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
On January 20th, Trump will be inaugurated once again as the President of the United States.
The theme for this year's Martin Luther King Jr. holiday.
Also on January 20th is so-called Martin Luther King Day. Now, while Trump is giving his speech, I'm sure he's going to invoke Martin Luther King and talk about how great of a man he was. The problem with that is King was no conservative.
Undergoing a radical redistribution of economic power.
In fact, most of the things that King advocated for were actually hostile to America, not pro-America, contrary to what you've learned in your public schools. So why is it that so-called conservatives insist on placing MLK on this pedestal? Trump isn't the only one.
Goes against everything Martin Luther King has ever told us.
The Reverend Dr. King famously said,
I have a dream that
I have a dream speech, right? One of the great speeches in American rhetorical history.
He was passionately pro-Constitution.
As eloquent and polished as many of your favorite conservative influencers and commentators are, why are they so naive to the clandestine and covert nature of Marxian globalists, credulously going along with the propagandized narrative rather than challenging their audiences to not be so simple-minded when it comes to what's really at play?
Nearly 60 years later, radical far-left Democrats are doing everything possible to eliminate this dream through the implementation of critical race theory.
How can you take a stand against critical race theory and DEI and Black Lives Matter when you support the civil rights movement, which is the very foundation on which those things stand? There's another thing that will be happening on January 20th. I will be releasing a project, or at least part of a project, that exposes the civil rights movement for what it really was. The Bible says, do not be taken captive by hollow and deceptive philosophies. This isn't about Republican versus Democrat. The truth is deeper and bigger than that. The question is, are you ready for it?
Also going to these cities like they did in Birmingham.
But we definitely plan to have massive demonstrations in the state of Alabama this summer. We feel that the time has come.
A huge part of the reason why MLK was disliked by a lot of elders, both black and white, was because he courted the allegiance of the youth.
They could not get the black people to come in and help them, so he went into the schools.
In fact, we are now recruiting students by the hundreds and thousands to join what we refer to as our nonviolent army. And they will constitute the persons who will engage in these demonstrations all over the state.
These children didn't know what they were getting involved in. They thought they were going to be just getting involved in a parade or a march. Kingdom had brought all of the cameras down from up north, and they needed a show. And even now, people don't even know what that was. It was manufactured. The whole thing was set up.
So that's a little bit of a taste of what I have coming, and you may have noticed the audio was a little off and stuff because I'm still working on it and tweaking it. But I'm working, like I said, diligently to try to get this out by January 20th. I don't think it's going to be fully ready by January 20th. I'll still be tweaking it, but I will have something ready by January 20th. April Chapman and I are planning to do a actual screening, in-person screening of the film, either late February or early March. My hope is late February because that's so-called Black History Month. So again, a fitting time to show something like this. So again, Historia Revelata is going to be the name of the company that I'm starting, and it's Latin for history revealed. And I'm hoping to make it a resource for home educators, for self-educators, for people who are just curious and interested in learning our history. And it's predicated on a basic idea that our heritage is worth knowing. And if you don't know our heritage, you're less inclined, you're less equipped to preserve our constitutional republic. So it's predicated on that basic notion. And even more importantly, the Bible says not to be taken captive by hollow and deceptive philosophies. It also says to don't call conspiracy what these wicked and evil people call conspiracy. Don't believe or fall for the narratives that's put forth by this unbelieving society. And unfortunately, because we all go to the same public schools, we all enjoy the same entertainment and watch the same television shows, Christians are just as susceptible to these narratives that are put forth by this unbelieving society as the rest of the dark and dying world is. And so, more importantly, I just want to equip Christians with true history so that they're not falling for this secular demagoguery. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be up to this year. And with that, I'll give it back to the panel, specifically Chuck. What do you got going on?
Oh man, well, for the year, I mean, I don't know, man. I haven't thought that far out. I just hope to be alive and in good health, especially my children and my wife. I don't have any big grandiose plans. I hear a lot from people who say, Chuck, you should, reach out to this person and do this and do that. And I'm like, hey, I mean, if it'll happen when it's time. I'm just going to continue to, do what I do, and hey, let the chips fall where they may. Looking forward to this documentary coming out next week, I guess is what Chad is shooting for. I know he told me privately. I think he said it publicly as well in that reel. He said that he plans on releasing, if not the entire documentary, at least half of it. I can only imagine how hard it is and how much work gets put in when it comes to editing, especially trying to edit someone like me. It has to be tough. Now, Chad and I, when he came to Detroit, interviewed me. We spoke for about maybe 2.5 hours, actually. And so you have me, you have Vince Everett Ellison, you saw in the clip, there's Virgil Hunter and some other people. So Virgil Hunter was a Virgil Walker, a couple other people. Who's Virgil Hunter? Ain't that the football player at Colorado? Yeah. Anyway, so I know it has to be tough, but I'm really looking forward to it. I planned on, while we were on this hiatus, I need to, like Quisha was talking about, I don't think I'm going to be able to get my subscribers up to 100K by the end of the year. I don't think that's happening for me, but who knows? But I at least want to get back to doing more of my more stuff on YouTube. Like I was telling Quisha before we started, I plan on, I wanted to work on the next installment in my series in terms of just exposing or shedding a brighter light on the politics of the Middle East and the region of Israel and what many people call Palestine today. A lot of folks are unaware that the movement of anti-Zionism, the anti-Zionist movement, actually came out of the Communist Party. And so, from the Communist Party to the New Left, going as far back as the 1930s, Stalin, in fact, took the side of Islamic liberation. He took the side of the Arab Muslim Ummah, took their side against the establishment of the homeland for the Jewish people. So just wanted to shed more of a brighter light on that. A lot of people are unaware of this history, because at the time there was still a significant presence of this kind of Jewish ethnic chauvinism in Russia that Stalin wanted to rid the Soviet Union of. And so anyway, long story. So be prepared for that in my next YouTube video. I planned on talking about that or doing research for that video. But Chad called me and reached out to me about this project. So I had to divert all of my attention, because when I do my YouTube videos, before I even record anything, I may literally read 2, 3, sometimes 4 books cover to cover before I even record for one video. And so when Chad reached out to me, he said, yeah, I want you to be a part of this project I'm doing for MLK Day. I had to focus on that. And so I had to hurry up and quick redirect my focus and my attention and get ready for this. And I'm like everyone, sitting on the edge of my seat waiting for what Chad puts together, because I know, for me, I was there, right? I was in the room, Chad and I were talking, and we talked about a lot of stuff, man. And then it's not, if you think that we're just going to go in there and like, oh, you've heard it all before. Yeah, the civil rights movement. Yeah, it was bad. Yeah, MLK was this and that. I mean, who doesn't know that by now? Man, you have no idea what you're in for, because we go in, I myself, I went all the way back to the 1860s and brought her all the way to the 1960s. So we talked about 100 years worth of information. So it's going to be great. I can't wait. I can't wait to see what Chad does with this. So, hey man, just looking forward to another good year.
Sounds good. Somebody said, Quisha, you one of the biggest coons up there. All right.
That's on your Instagram.
I got in the chat right here, right now.
Yeah, leave them there.
I got a husband now. We got smoke for you. Okay, don't do that. You don't want to call Mr. Benjamin. Don't play that. My man don't play that me. Okay.
Yeah.
Why are you the biggest coon? I feel slighted.
Right.
Yeah, it's supposed to be me.
Supposed to be Blanche. I thought it would be Blanche.
You ain't been watching the show, boo. It's them, not me. I'm the nuanced one, honestly.
Yeah, it's definitely me.
Yeah. You should have sympathy for the blacks.
Yeah, I have zero for you. I want slavery to come back. Jim Crow. I want Jamal Crow. I want it all to come back.
Oh,
I want apartheid, Jamal Crow. I want everything, slavery, Reconstruction. I want it all to come back.
Oh, God.
And I wanted to, when I was just talking about my next project on YouTube, just real quick before you jump in, Chad. Like, a lot of people think that because even when I first when I did my first discussion, first talk about it, I talked a lot about the founder of socialist Zionism or labor Zionism, because the country of Israel was founded by a lot of socialists and leftists. Because there's a connection between the labor movement and just the whole thing. I won't get into all of it. Don't have time for it. That's not why I'm here. But a lot of people are of the misconception. There's just a lot of misconceptions about the politics of Israel and its founding and how it relates to the wider left-wing communist movement. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to really bringing some clarity to that conversation. So, yeah, I can't wait. And a lot of people don't like me for saying it. A lot of people hate me for it. Quisha just did a video called The Woke Right. It's a popular thing on the so-called right, a lot of these talking points. But I stand wholeheartedly and steadfastly against it. So you either love it or you hate it, love me or hate me. I'm going to say what I'm going to say.
What is the woke right? I know that's a term that James Lindsay popularized. What is he getting at exactly?
So what he's getting at is this idea that when you start to categorize people by their particular put people in these groups and basically deem them the same thing, like oppressors or oppressed or some version of that, how I put it as you're eating fruit of the poisonous tree, and that fruit bears death, damnation, and destruction. If you cannot fix evil by doing evil, it is the same thing. Like the very idea of it comes from the communism, the left, and evil. I mean, that's where it comes from. And so when we turn around and do the same thing, even though we're not talking about a race with, what it's called, when people are talking about Jews, they're talking, well, religion and ethnicity, I guess. But these superficial, not superficial, I should say, but these characteristics that they put on groups of people, putting them in these statuses, if you're a Jew, you're a controller, if you're white, you're an oppressor, if you're black, you're this, it is fruit from the poisonous tree. And if you participate in that constantly, you are literally doing the same thing that the left is doing. It's no different.
Part of my ignorance, but isn't it the case that one cannot talk about, I guess, what you just laid out as a definition of woke right without actually being found guilty of doing the exact same thing that you are trying to denounce? Because when you use terms like the left and the people on the left do this and all that, is it not the same thing? Again, this is my first time really looking into what or asking what is the woke right. So I'm just going based off of what you just said.
So to me, when it's a group, when it's an organization, I should say, like if it's an organization, these people have chosen to be a part of an organization, and they themselves have said, I believe this. So to me, when we say the left or the Democrats or the right or organizations where people have chosen to put themselves in the category, I think that is a little bit different than someone just taking a group of people. And like if we're talking about like Black folks who are Democrats, you've chosen to put yourself in that you've chosen that label for yourself. And so us talking about the label, like I don't see anything wrong, like from a marketing perspective, like I don't see anything wrong when we say, if you're trying to appeal to a certain demographic, like if you say, okay, we can see statistically the facts of this type of behavior, so we're going to make this product like this. I don't really see a problem with that. I think the problem comes in is when you're making these statements and you're putting everybody in the group. They haven't espoused it themselves. You're just saying Jews. You're just saying Blacks. And I mean, there's nuance there, because if you're just talking about a topic and you say Black folks or white folks, like, okay, you have to generalize because you want to have a conversation. I don't think what we're getting at. It's the people that are doing this and they're putting these labels on people, a particular label, not just generally speaking to talk about a topic. I don't know. That's kind of the best way I can explain it.
That makes sense. I understand.
For me, like, I mean, regardless of how you term it, I think I don't know how Chad personally feels about the term. I think he was just sort of playing devil's advocate just to get Quisha to provide more exposition or to provide further clarity. But I think the symptom of the a woke right, or what Quisha referred to as the woke right in her video, I think I saw it exemplified in the reel that Chad played at the top of the show or moments ago when he asked the question about what is the state of modern conservatism. Because for me, regardless if you use the term woke right or not, what I see on the right is what I have been seeing on the so-called right for many, many years now. And I've been having conversations with Chad O privately since I've known him over the past 2.5 years. And that is, there's a lot of intellectual laziness on the right. And a lot of the folks on the so-called right simply think that it is enough for them to oppose Democrats, or if I oppose or whatever is on the standard of the left, well, then that's enough, right? That's enough for me. It's just simply to be opposed to the left. And so this is where you get a lot of conservatives or those who either support Republican politicians or, vote for them or registered Republicans. This is where you get a lot of the defense of MLK. This is where you get a lot to Quisha's point, where you do see a lot of Jewish bigotry on the right. There's all sorts of things occurring on the right. Someone in the comment section made a statement with regard to the renowned scholar James Lindsay, to whom I have a ton of respect for as a scholar, said that he loves Jews more than he loves Americans. See, it's stuff like that. I mean, never mind the fact that there are Jews that are in fact Americans, but I think I get his point overall. This is the kind of stuff that you get because a lot of people on the right are just as intellectually lazy as their so-called liberal counterparts. I'm going to say something that Chad said to me. I'm going to say it. It's not anything salacious or anything like that, because I know better than to say something that should remain private. So Chad, don't try to jump in and censor me. I promise I'm not going to expose anything. But Chad said to me one time, he said that, Chuck, the thing about it is, he said, regardless if someone is on the left, and I may have said this before, but he said, no matter if someone is on the left or if they're on the right, what you're going to find, and this is like in the beginning, like I said, when he and I first started talking, he said that regardless if someone is on the left or if they're on the right, what you're going to come to discover is that most of the people online just aren't that smart. And then it sounds bad. It's like, Chad, who are you to say? And I agree. So again, maybe bring the smoke towards me and not towards Chad. But there are a lot of people on the so-called right who are just as ignorant, who are just as dumb, and who are just as intellectually lazy and just credulous and just the same as those that they criticize, but because they wear a Make America Great Again hat, or because they claim to be MAGA, or because they every other word that comes out of their mouths is look at the Democrats, well then they go on unscathed. And so in their minds, again, like Quisha pointed out, as the wheels begin to turn, they begin to conjure up these sort of conspiratorial-like narratives that make the complexities of what it is that they're looking at easy for them to digest from within their, I guess, their so-called conservative purviews. And so it's a lot of intellectual, again, laziness, dishonesty. And a lot of folks on the so-called right are very, very disingenuous, and people don't want to hear that. People aren't going to want to hear me say it, but it is what it is. And it even goes back to something that I mentioned to Chad when we were filming for the documentary, when I exposed some of the not often enough mentioned history of the Republican Party that a lot of people don't want to know about, because we talk about how the Democrat Party is the party of slavery, right? And the Republican Party is the party that freed the slaves. Oh, really? Is that what the Republican Party is known for? Is that what the Republican Party was known for in the 1860s? Well, we shall see. We shall see.
Oh.
I just want to say something. So when we talk about labeling groups, so for example, if I say the Jews do well in business, just make a blanket statement, or I say that the Jews are smart, or I say that the Jews know how to stick together. These statements aren't frowned upon or shunned upon, and they should be, because essentially what you're saying is that we can't apply a group label or a label to a group, but said group does it to themselves. So just like, so black people will say, if you say black people are very resilient and they're very strong people, but then if I say black people are foolish, well, them being strong and resilient would be accepted as a group label. But if I say they're foolish, it won't be. So the problem is that if a group doesn't want to be, or a person want to be labeled in a group, then they can't accept anything positive as a group. So meaning when somebody says that, Blanche, you're a strong black man, I say that's a lie, I'm not black. I reject black, I reject the group, I reject it all. You know, I'm a follower of Christ. That's my identity. So I just think that we can't have it both ways. Either a group label is bad, period, or the group label is acceptable. But we can't just say in this case it's good, in this case it's bad. And that's what I see. I see a lot of, well, if you say something negative about a group, in this instance it's bad, but say something is positive, it's good. I think you can't have it both ways. So that means that members of said groups, whether it be quote unquote Jews, whether it be blacks, whether it be LGBTQs, whether it be any quote unquote marginalized or disenfranchised group or whatever kind of group, even white, the group can't accept any kind of group label. That means that we have to look at everybody as an individual. That means for whites, Jews, blacks, LGBTQs. So if folks aren't prepared to do that, then how do we say we're going to pick and choose and say, okay, well, in this instance, you can't say group, but in this instance, you can. I used to work with Jewish people, and I know what they would get offended by, what they would get offended by. And it was they would get offended by this and not by this. Now, I can't say that they didn't treat me wrong. They didn't persecute me. They didn't oppress me. I was allowed to speak freely with them when I'm speaking to y'all. But I did notice that if I made a broad Jew statement, if it was a correction, the correction was Jews do this. There wasn't a correction of individually Jews may do this. There was correction of Jews do this. So when it was positive, it was the group. If it was negative, it wasn't true. And so I'm saying that we can't pick and choose when we apply that group label. Either it's bad as a group or it's good as a group. So again, I'm not going to say that all black people are anything. I want to say there are good black people. Let me take that back. There are rarely is a good black person. Most black people are bad. But I will say, but I'm not going to say that a group is anything. There are Jews that hold positions of power and Jews that don't. There are black folks that have powers, black folks that don't. So it ain't a group anything. There are individuals in this world that are led by Satan. And to me, they're not led by Satan because they're Jewish or they practice Judaism. They're not led by Satan because they black or whatever. They're led by Satan because they choose to follow Satan. And it's not really, to me, a group thing. But again, we can't say the group is good in this. The Asians are good at math. But if I say Asians are this, they're not that. No, we can't have it both ways. We got to say it's all or nothing on that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've noticed that too, Blanche, because there has been instances, and of course, like whenever, like even when the whole Gaza thing happened and you had this eruption around the world of, you know, Jews versus Palestine. Are you on the side of Israel or are you on the side of Palestine? Like I basically kept my mouth shut on the matter, but just in sheer observation, I noticed that same kind of reaction from certain Jews that I know when it comes to rhetoric that I see amongst blacks in terms of taking a perfectly innocent comment and being so taken aback by it. I think that's what kind of what something, you know, a little bit of what you're saying, being taken aback by it, being deeply offended in the same way that I see, you know, blacks doing the same thing. And so it becomes a thing where you have to kind of walk on eggshells around certain people instead of just being able to speak freely, even when you know in your heart and your mind that you're not intending to offend. And I noticed this with Ben Shapiro a long time ago, back in 2015 or 16, when I stopped listening to him. Like he was on it when it came to politics, when it came to putting his pulse on the culture. But anytime something would happen in culture that he would define as anti-Semitic, even though a cursory observation of said thing was not anti-Semitic at all, he would dedicate the entire show of talking about how anti-Semitic it is and da 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 da. And it just kind of got tiring after a while to where I stopped listening to him. He would later go on to hire Candace Owens, and I thought that that was odd because here's someone who is Mr. Facts Don't Care About Your Feelings, yet he's willing to get bent out of shape when he construes something as anti-Semitic. Yet you'll hire a woman who's known for critiquing Black culture. So why don't you critique, the fact that there are certain things or has been certain things that, when it comes to this kind of woe was me kind of mentality that certain Jews have, like why don't you spend the time at least giving clarity to that thing? Because like if you're going to say something's anti-Semitic, that's one thing. But why are you not willing to give clarity to this notion that, yes, there are people who do happen to be ethnically Jewish who, are putting out pornography and all the other things that are going on? It's not predicated on their Judaism, but, there are certain people. I don't agree with that. Like, why not make it clear? Like, why not give clarity? Like, why just kind of give this broad-based retort of you're anti-Semitic? Like, give clarity at the very least. But you're willing to bring on Candace Owens to criticize Black culture as a Black woman? Like, why don't you do the same thing when it comes to giving just clarity? I'm not telling you to denounce Judaism, to say that. Like, no, I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying, like, give clarity and you know what I mean? If facts really don't care about your feelings, then give us the facts. You're willing to give us facts on every single thing else, but when it comes to what you deem anti-Semitic, you're not willing to give the same kind of clarity. And Ben Shapiro is a very smart man. I mean, that goes without saying. But that's just something I've observed. That's just something I've observed.
No,
I just really quick, I would say, like, for sake of a conversation, like when you're trying to just talk, like I said, you are gonna say Jews or Blacks or whites or whatever, because you can't. I think it's, in my mind, I hope at least, for people who are, you don't, when you're saying Blacks or white, you don't mean every single Black person, when you're just talking about a particular thing you can't possibly, that's where stereotypes come from, because you don't know individual, you don't know everybody individually, and you're just trying to have a conversation. So that's, to me, that's one bucket. The other thing is, let's take Ben and Candace. When Candace is talking about the Jews run this, or they are pedophiles, whatever, to me, that's a bridge too far, because you are putting a crime on a whole group of people. Like, I don't like when people say, Black people are just, violent, and they don't really mean, they're not saying it for the sake of conversation. They mean Black people are violent. Like, if they see a Black person, they think that they are violent. There are some people who really do have these thoughts. That's how you get people that are on the left, that when they see a Black person, they automatically think that you are oppressed, or that you grew up less than somehow. They automatically think you're a Democrat. We've probably all had that happen to us before. They come up to, they literally in their mind think that every Black person is a Democrat. There's no other space for you to hold in society. So to me, the thing that's wrong with this is, you go beyond just having a conversation, and you actually believe these types of things about groups of people, and that can get very dangerous. That is what leads to, especially when it's you have a big voice. If you have a big platform or something, and you're saying, like, crazy stuff about a group of people, for instance, Trump. He's Hitler, he's Hitler, he's Hitler. Okay, well, somebody tries to kill him. I mean, that's what these big voices have been saying for a very long time. These things do have, they can bear out and and have consequences. There are tons of people that are not Jewish who are pedophiles. There are tons of people who are not Jewish that work in Hollywood and do some really evil stuff. You know what it does too? It makes you focus on one group while other people are actually doing the thing that you so-called you on your quest to get rid of. Like, it's just too, I don't know. I just don't, this whole putting the groups in their places and then like laws come behind this thing, and when it gets political, I don't think that that's a good thing for us to do, because the long end of that, it just ends bad.
Quisha, okay, Chad is talking about. I think he's muted. I don't know.
Let me respond. Let me
Go
respond
ahead.
to things that you
Before I
said
jump
real
in.
quick, Quisha, before Chuck, because I know Chuck and Blanche wanted to jump in too. But just real quickly, when it comes to Candace Owens and some of the reckless things that she's been saying about Jews as a whole, I do agree with you. That is too far. But what I'm saying is that kind of comes with the territory of who Candace Owens is. And I'm saying that Daily Wire hired Candace Owens, at least to my understanding, on the notion that she will bring that brashness when it comes to criticizing the absurdities of Black culture and the absurdities of American culture, because that's the brand. That's a Candace Owens brand. When she basically put the Jews in her crosshairs, then it became a problem. And so my point is that I feel that Ben Shapiro could have, I don't know, like in that instance, I think Daily Wire did have a right to part ways with Candace, when she began doing that. But my critique of Ben Shapiro is he's doing the very same things, Candace Owens aside. He's doing the very same thing when he acts like a victim when it comes to something that, generally speaking, with a cursory level kind of observation, is not legitimately anti-Semitic. And somebody would say, well, Chad, you can't say that. You're not a Jew. You don't know what it's like. I mean, people say that all the time about us as Black folks. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you didn't walk in a Black man's shoes, and so therefore you don't know it. Well, I am a Black man, and I can tell you that America is not, doesn't treat me as a second-class citizen in the way that the wokesters would say. So anyway, I'm hoping what I'm saying makes sense. I do believe, yes, Candace took it too far. However, that kind of came with the territory of the Candace Owens brand when it came to hiring her for, with Daily Wire. So,
see, okay, and we'll deal with Coast Square. The Coast is clear. I mean, Chad is just making a point that was her brand. So you hire her on, you're going to get a daily dose or a heavy dose of that. I think it's Chad's point overall. Mm-hmm. Well, as far as Candace Owens is concerned, if you've seen some of my YouTube content recently, I've had very few nice things to say about her. I'll just leave it at that because again, this is not my this is not my own. This is not a solitary thing that I'm up here doing. I don't want my opinions to be misconstrued and pawned off on my fellow co-panelists, because they probably aren't as harsh of critics of her as I am. It's not just her statements with regard to whether it be the Jews, whether it be her lackluster knowledge of World War II, her lackluster knowledge about a lot of things, right? It's just the fact that it isn't so much that what she says causes offense. And to Chad's point, the problem is that you get so much, of course, Ben Shapiro has this, moniker facts over feelings that he's known for. And it would seem to many that he falls victim of kind of getting in his feelings, as we like to say, as opposed to dealing with whether or not something is factual. The problem I have for me when it comes to Candace is she says a lot of things that are blatantly false. Not to mention her blatant hypocrisy when it comes to the people that she likes. And this is the thing that I'm talking about when it comes to, I guess, Quisha, with this whole thing about the woke right. You see, we like to run cover for people who we think is on our side politically, so we ignore the glaring things that should bring cause, that should cause us to pause, right? For as much as she talks about how much she is on this crusade for Christ, that doesn't seem to be the case, because a huge part of the reason why you have a lot of this, I guess, vitriol toward the wider Jewish community, in spite of how complex and how different and how textured and how idiosyncratic, if you will, when it comes to the Jews as a whole, no matter how rich they are and how many different identity markers that they have that sets them apart, they as a whole get this label, right, as being, of course, those, blaspheme, right, because that's what we're talking about. Part of the whole criticism, if you will, is the sort of blasphemous nature that lies at the heart of Jewish theology. But that doesn't seem to be the case when it comes to those who share her political views, or those who are willing to criticize the same folks that she has a problem with. Then their blasphemy does not seem to bother her. But anyway, this again, I don't want to make the show about Candace Owens. I ain't mean that. But anyway, I just had to get that off my chest. And I think a lot of you know what I'm talking about, and you know who I'm talking about, because there are a lot of people to whom doesn't seem to come across her radar when it comes to their blasphemy. But yet still, the Jews deny the fact that Christ is the Messiah. And so why in the world does the United States continue to come to the defense of Israel, when in fact this issue is not one of a kind of one that is theological in nature, but it is one that is political in nature, which is something completely different, which is something that she should understand if she understood the consequences of the Enlightenment and how it in large part gave birth to the modern world that we live in today. That's another point. You see, for me, it isn't so much, because I can talk in platitudes all day about, how we talk about people, how we talk about certain groups, how we do this and how we do that, and so on and so forth. But for me, it's all about the knowledge, the information, what is factual, what is correct, and what is incorrect. Another huge component of this kind of new modern, the actual neoconservatives, right? Not the Victor Davis Hansen or the Thomas Sowell type neoconservatives. I've seen people in the comment section on social media platforms that I've been a part of refer to someone like a Victor Davis Hansen, for example, as a neocon, right? Or say the types of things they say about James Lindsay today. A huge part of modern conservative criticism towards a whole swath of religious folk, or not even so much a whole swath of religious folk, right? Because it's good if you're talking about Jews and what type of Jewish people are you talking about, in fact, is the point that the whole corruption of Western culture, the blame lies at the feet of one particular group of folks, because we can all kind of look from the outside looking in and say, well, who in fact are the power brokers in Hollywood, in music, and in entertainment, and so on and so forth. Not only that, but the corruption of our educational system when it comes to the promotion of all of these Marxian ideas, which is a huge sort of thing that a lot of your Frankfurt School acolytes began to hide behind once they made the trek over to the United States, right, was the whole tag and the whole label of anti-Semitism, because many folks began to believe that the perpetuation and the promotion of Marxism within American culture was a Jewish conspiracy. So it became an anti-Semitic thing to even point it out or to even talk about it, you see. And so this whole crusade, because again, a lot of conservatives have pointed out communism and Marxism to be the enemy. And so as a result, because of the intellectual laziness of a lot of conservatives, by default, Jews become this kind of synonym for this enemy that they claim, and rightfully so when it comes to communism and globalism and all these various things. And so it's them, they're the ones who are doing it. And so, but they neglect to mention the fact, because they do not know what they're talking about, that a lot of these Marxist ideas came into the popular imagination across the West through a lot of heretical Christian teachings that began primarily with George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, who was not in fact Jewish, but was a self-described Christian and was a theologian by trade, or not so much a theologian. He was more so a theosophist and not a theologian. But a lot of these heretical, Gnostic type Christian viewpoints is what eventually became the politicized Marxism that we all became familiar with in the 19th century. So you have the individual in Karl Marx, who was an ethnic Jew, but became baptized in the Christian faith by the time he was 6 years old, and then went on to become an atheist when he went to college. So there's three phases of Marx. There's the ethnic Jew that is Marx, there's the Christian that is Marx, and then there's the atheist that is Karl Marx. But people remember Karl Marx as being Jewish, but not being a person who, of course, became a Christian at a later point in his life. So which one is it? Is Karl Marx Jewish or is Karl Marx Christian? No, he is Jewish because he was born that way. Because he claimed to be Christian doesn't make it so, because we know history tells us who Karl Marx eventually became, you see. And so there are a lot of issues involved here. Not to mention, again, even if you look at how Marxism as a philosophy gained a foothold in China, because remember, even Mao Zedong said it himself when he was young, how he imagined one day marching over to the Confucius temple and tearing the statue down, right? Because when you're talking about the Marxist ideology, you're talking about something completely different. You're talking about something else. It's difficult because you cannot talk about this and simply talk about it and explain it in the way of platitudes and talk about how people should analyze it or how they should speak about it versus how they shouldn't speak about it, and so on and so forth. Some of the greatest teachers that I've had in my life that I've never met personally, again, these were all ethnic Jews who were conservative, either philosophically or ideologically, and so on and so forth. That being someone like a Dennis Prager. I do think that Ben Shapiro is a very bright person who I learned a ton of things from. I love the scholastic work of Alan Bloom, the economic work of someone, say, like a Milton Friedman, the personal testimonies, the historical and the political activism of someone like a David Horowitz, who again was another ethnic Jew. I can go down the line, a modern day intellectual that does a lot of good work, puts out a lot of good work, who was a Lebanese Jew who escaped the horrors of Beirut during the Lebanese Civil War. Many of you are familiar with him. That is Dr. Gad Saad, another Jew. On and on and on. And so the issue is far more complex and complicated than we're making it out to be. And the reality is that many of people who talk all this stuff about, well, as a conservative, I'm against Marxism and the communist movement, they have never, ever put forth the effort in actually studying it. They do not know what it is. They do not understand the history of Jewish people and the conflict that existed between the synagogue and the church down throughout the Middle Ages. They have this whole caricatured view of what they think is actually going on when they have never put forth the effort to study what is actually going on. They just don't know what they're talking about. And it makes me angry when I consider it, because again, for me, it's about the facts. It's about what's actually going on, not so much about, well, what a person should say and what they should say. And if you are afraid to say the word Jew, then all of a sudden you are controlled by some hidden hand. It's just all a bunch of BS, man. It's just BS. Sorry, I'm done. I probably ain't gonna talk no more for the rest of the night. Y'all gonna have it.
Yeah, right. That's not true. Can I say one thing? I'm sorry. Okay. The other thing that needs to be said in the conversation of being woke, right or left or whatever, is power. Because woke people, they look at power. They're saying, who holds the power? And then the person who holds the power are keeping it from these other people. That's a huge part of this whole thing. It's not just, oh, I'm talking about whites, or I'm talking about blacks, or I'm talking about Jews, or I'm talking about Asians or whatever. It's a power thing. Woke is, it's trying to say this group of people holds power, therefore we have to go and get it back. And so that's where the grouping comes in. Who you're looking, you got to be critical race theory, you got to be critical of who holds the power. So then, you know, it's kind of like it's going to tell you who doesn't have the power. Then we can try to get those who don't, in society and how they're looking at it. We got to get those people into power because they've been pushed out by the powerful. So it's not just, oh, I'm talking about the Jews, or I'm talking about whites or blacks. It's a power struggle, right? The struggle for power. That is the framework in which they're talking about this, and that's what they're doing on the right. They're saying, "Oh, these people have power, and it's taking from these other group of people who don't." That's another way of looking at it, because it's a power thing. That's all. Sorry, Blanche. Go ahead.
Yeah, you just have to identify the right culprit. You see,
exactly.
But
that's what it all boils down to.
But again, I'm gonna say the same thing I said. You can't say as a group, we do this, we do this. It's not like Jewish people are saying, I'm a non-practice, I'm an Orthodox Jew. I don't practice Judaism. There's not a separation when they're talking. The same lazy way people are thinking and talking is what groups do. And so at the end of the day, as a group, you can't say we do this well, and then if somebody says, well, if y'all do this well, y'all do this wrong, and now it's a problem. The issue is there's more than just saying they're Jews or not Jews. There's also them being the quote unquote chosen people of God. That's also a factor according to their religion. And again, not all Jews practice Judaism. There are Jews that are Christian, there are Jews that are Muslims, there are Jews that everything in the world. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about as a group. You can't say, I accept a group label over here, but I don't accept it over here, because that's picking and choosing. When we speak in generalities, again, speaking in generality, if I say that black people do this, it's not all black people, right? But is it right that I'm saying it? No, it's not. That's why I talk about black culture versus black people. I talk about bligatees indulging in black culture versus the average black person. The average person does not know the history. So their frame of reference isn't actual history, it's what they've been told or what they looked up or whatever reason. Is it right? No. At the same time, is it right for the group to say, we excel in this because of this, but when you put this label on this, okay, we don't want the label anymore. There are global conspiracies about Catholics, the Pope. There are global conspiracies about China. There are global conspiracies about a whole bunch of groups in the world. And again, if I go outside and I see billboards like I saw last year, a whole bunch of billboards talking about anti-Semitism, what was going on, I'm going to say cap. If I see the same billboards talking about Black Lives Matter, I'm still going to say cap. If I see the same billboards talking about anti-immigration, I'm still going to say cap. Because you mentioned woke, Quisha, that means what is a part of being woke? Part of being woke is I'm a part of a marginalized group. I'm disenfranchised. I'm oppressed. There is a power over me.
That's not woke.
I'm saying, hold on. I'm saying that's what people, when people are woke, if a person is woke, they're going to identify with a group that is oppressed by a power structure. If a person is woke. If you look at anybody that's quote unquote considered woke, what's the foundation of being woke? Is you're conscious of what? You're woke to what? What are you woke to? You're woke to a power.
You have a way of spoken to the
again, this is I hate just shamelessly plugging again. There's a whole YouTube video on my channel where I talk about this whole concept of populism, the term democracy, and so on and so forth. Talk about neo-populism. And I gave a brief example, and it could have been much, much longer. Trust me, I may revisit the topic at some point in the future. If I promise you guys, if I did this for a living, I could hit you with 3 or 4 videos a month. But I talked about how in that particular area of Central Europe in particular, where a lot of these ideas came from, right? I'm working on a whole series. I'm at part 3 now. But I began talking about how, again, the campaigns of Napoleon and the conflicts between the empires of Central Europe and the Jewish population there, who looked toward France as their liberators for a time, and how, again, there was a whole mixture. There was a confluence of circumstances that led and that helped shape the minds of a lot of Jews in that particular region of the world, and how that particular frame of mind became popular in the kind of this ascending sense of liberalism in these ideas that were popular during the French Revolution, and how a lot of these ideas were taken into other parts of the world during the Napoleonic Wars. Again, I'm talking about, this is the boring stuff that people don't want to talk about, right? That's why I said, for me, it's not, it's not, and I understand exactly what Blanchard said, and Blanchard makes a good point. I'm not talking about any kind of, again, not talking about platitudes at all. But there's a reason why and how a lot of those ideas came out of that particular region of the world. And again, the differences between traditional Jewish theology and the doctrine that grew out of liberalism, which in fact was Marxism, which again, this is according to, once again, the great scholar Friedrich Hayek, who famously said, that socialism had become the heir apparent of the liberal tradition. And a lot of Jews in that particular region of the world began to take to these liberal ideas. So the question then becomes, what, as we define liberalism, and by extension, the field of academia and the intelligentsia, what became the standard within the field of academia across the West, the world over? And those who excel in that particular field will undoubtedly have to, again, curry water for the kind of the popular opinion of the day within academia. And that particular tradition and thing has been with us for over 2 centuries now. And so is a whole slew of information a lot of people are skipping over because they don't want to talk about that part. They just want to talk about, nitpick what this person says, or how Ben Shapiro responds to this, or what Candace Owens says about that, and so on and so forth. And, again, to Blanchard's point, the problem is with a lot of your more conservative Jews, for example, and I think this is what Chad was alluding to as well when he made the criticism of Ben Shapiro. And this is something that I found to be true about, folks like Ben Shapiro, is that there is no difference to point out, to say, well, yes, that thing there can be true without it simply being an attack on, like you say, this whole a group of folk. Because if we want to accept it when it's positive and don't want to accept it when it's negative, then we have to reevaluate how, the way we look at this entire thing. And so, it becomes a bit of an issue, and another thought. I mean, there's so many. I mean, you talk about, I am a huge admirer. One of the nation's leading constitutional minds is, of course, the great Mark Levin. Love him wholeheartedly. Don't agree with everything he said, particularly when it comes to his assessment of the civil rights movement, for example. But I love Mark Levin. I love Dr. Michael Savage. Love Michael Savage. Michael Savage, an ethnic Jew, will be the first person to tell you about about a lot of Jews and their nefarious activities when it came to the secularizing of American culture and the degrading of American culture. And so, but when you talk about that, it can't just be simply, well, it's anti-Semitic when you point it out, because that's not true. But at the same time, there is this growing sense of anti-Semitism within the right. Is something that I didn't want to admit. And I sat back and I watched it evolve over a few years. But it is true, because a lot of people on the right are just flat out lazy. And to Quisha's point, they simply want to identify the right group so that they can bring about this kind of conservative utopianism, because they, in fact, do not understand, quite frankly, what it even means to be a conservative in the first place. They're just a bunch of Johnny-come-latelys who are beginning to make a name for themselves on social media because of the popularity in the post-Trump era. But they haven't taken any of these things seriously. Not at all. Not at all. Couldn't tell you anything about John Locke, Immanuel Kant, Adam Smith, Edmund Burke. They couldn't tell you the slightest thing. They haven't even read Karl Marx. But again, you know, these Jews are just corrupting the world, you see.
But we can agree that most conservatives aren't anti-Jewish. Most people in the church aren't anti-Jewish. We can agree that that is not a large portion of the population on the right to be anti-Jewish. There may be some loud voices, but that's not the majority. Most people don't have the slightest idea why they should even hate Jewish people. They don't even think about that. Most people are always concerned with white folks doing stuff. They don't even venture over to the Jewish side. There are people that are anti-Jewish, but most people are not anti-Jewish. My response was to Quisha's post that she did. And if we're talking about when she mentioned woke, I'm saying what woke person isn't a victim? What woke person doesn't see themselves as some type of victim, as being something is being, they all do. That's the part of being woke, because you're quote unquote conscious to what is going on. Well, what is going on? I'm being oppressed. I'm being done wrong. That group is doing it. That group is doing it. To me, all of it's wrong. Because to blame white people for all of the problems is no different than blaming Jews for all of the problems, because it's not all of the Jews doing it. There are a whole bunch of global powers in the world that do all kind of stuff, making technology. There's all kind of people doing it. So to just say it's the Jews, and to me, I don't agree with it at all, because a lot of it, like Chuck says, it is being lazy. It is you saying that because I can't figure something out, or because I don't want to research something, the easiest thing to do is just say, well, Lil Hat's okay, it's them, because everybody else is saying it's them, or the Farrakhan said it was them, you know. So again, I don't agree with that. I was simply saying about the labeling of a group. The labeling of a group. If it's labeling of a group is wrong, so again, you don't have to say that. To me, you have to bring up the Jewish anyway. If it's a bad person doing something, it's a bad person doing something. You don't have to. Their race or ethnicity shouldn't even matter. Like if it's a bad person doing something, it's a bad person doing something. So if Karl Marx is Jewish, it doesn't mean he's bad because he's Jewish. He didn't create communism because he's Jewish. And the problem is that people are saying that because they're Jewish, they're doing these things. I'm like, they could have been Chinese doing it. Chinese do all kind of crazy stuff. Nobody's saying about them being Chinese. And again, I agree, Chuck, that the Jews are the only group of people where their quote unquote ethnicity is linked to their bad behavior, versus it just being a person that happens to be Jewish did this. So I do agree. I was talking about the labeling of a group as
no. I get you, Blanche. I get you, and I get where you're coming from, and I agree with your assessment. And this is why I say the irony of it all is that a lot of this silly rhetoric, Blanche just hit the nail on the head, which I was saying in so many words, is that it's not linked to that, right? It's due to something. It's due to something else. You can talk about the excesses of liberalism. You can talk about a lot of different things, but it has nothing to do with the fact that, yes, Karl Marx was an ethnic Jew, therefore he did this. That's not the case. A lot of people, and maybe I may disagree with Blanche just a tiny bit on this. I don't think it's the majority. I will say that. But I think it's more prevalent than a lot of us probably want to admit. And I think that may have been the impetus for Quisha doing the woke right video that she did when she talked about the amount of hate and things of that nature that James Lindsay receives online. And he's and Quisha could probably speak to this better, because I think she knows James Lindsay personally. But that's just it. You know what I'm saying? It's just identifying yourself as a victim, and you have a lot of that on the right. It's just that the right has picked something new, has picked something else, has picked the new culprit to say, but see, what you don't realize is that I have really found out who was really doing it, who's really pulling the strings. You guys are focused over here, but if you were really enlightened, you would be looking over here, whereas what you need to be looking. Like if you look at, for example, when Candace Owens was let go from the Daily Wire for whatever reason, of course, she's this huge, she's against the left and everything that the left is doing, what the left is, what the left stands for. Quisha, I don't know if you know the young ladies, and they remind me of that one lady, the black lady. She was fired from her name was Joy something or another, and she was
Brianna Joy somebody. She was on the Hill. She was right from the Hill.
That's right. She was let go from the Hill when she had a conversation. I can't remember whose platform she was on, but she had a conversation with a lady. I think she was an American citizen, if memory serves me correctly. And she was talking about, I guess, family members of hers who are currently being held hostage by Islamic terrorists in the Gaza Strip in the wake of the October attacks. And this Brianna Joy person, Brianna Joy Gray, mocked her and laughed at her and said, boo hoo hoo, your family's being, because of course, being a radical extremist on the left, of course, she's all power to the people for Palestine. Well, her performance in that interview got her, I think, fired from the Hill. And so shortly thereafter, surprise, 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 guess who Brianna Joy something or another, guess who platform she winds up on? She winds up on Candace Owens' platform, and they're both all having this Yas Queen sister girl moment, talking about how the Jewish conspiracy, the power brokers got rid of because she's a black woman who's willing to tell the truth about what's going on in Gaza. She was stripped of her job, and Candace Owens was stripped of her job. So therefore, they come together to bond, to talk about how much the Jews censored the media, because she was fired and she was fired. So now all of a sudden she's buddies with some pinko communists on the left who she probably would have criticized the day before, but soon as she gets fired, or now she has something in common with this woman. So now they're friends because she's a victim of, Jewish censorship because she was let go from a job.
Brianna Joy Gray is obligatory. 1,000%. She is 1,000% obligatory. It ain't even no question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She actually foolish.
Right. So question, why would Candace Owens bring her on her platform to talk about her experience of her getting fired for what she said during a debate over the conflict in Palestine? Why would Candace Owens have her on her platform?
How do we know she got fired from that debate, though? Is that even true?
Why? Yeah. She said it's, well, that's what she claims.
Man, please. She's terrible. She's a horrible. Man, listen. She foolish.
That's what she claimed.
All right, so let's reset the room a little bit. So we got super chat from Miss Ree. Thank you, Miss Ree. She said, "Happy New Year to the Cutting Through the Culture panel and family." Thank you, greatly appreciate it. Let's see, we got one from Tiara Barnes with this $50 super. Thank you, Tiara. Says thank you for coming back to do another season of CTTC. God bless you, Chad, Chuck, Blanche, and Quisha. Thank you. Appreciate it. Got one from Keep It To Yourself, $5. What we cooning about today? You coon, you Negroes planning another coon documentary. Good Lord, man. We are headed to the complete whitening of our race. Sad. That's fine. I'm fine with that. Thank you for the $5. Really appreciate it.
He called us the Coontastic Four. I thought that was good.
That's pretty clever.
Yeah, that was good.
Like that. I like when they get creative. Yeah. I really appreciate that because coon just is.
I'm gonna try to get somebody to draw. I know ours. I'm gonna get somebody to draw us like the Coontastic Four. Like I'm gonna see if you can conceptualize it.
Just make me snatch, Tony. Okay, make me snatch.
Chief Dialectics. He says, Chuck, we would love to see some of your notes at just your research process. I don't know why I couldn't read that. Thank you for that, Chief.
Syllables.
Really appreciate it. What'd you say?
It was too many syllables.
Too many syllables, yeah. Thanks, Vic. He gifted 5 memberships. Really appreciate it. The Throne Room. $10 says everything is spiritual, and Satan has successfully tricked the majority to believing it's a certain people or race. Yeah, that's true. I mean, we know that God is not a God of confusion, and we know that Satan is the author of chaos and calamity and dysfunction. So totally agree with that. Then we have one from Oh Really again, says, would the CTTC crew join Truth Social? I don't need another social media platform, to be honest.
Okay, me either.
Twitter is enough. I'm barely keeping up with Twitter.
Yeah, I got a wife and 4 kids. I barely post on IG all that much. I mean, you may notice that I might post something, like repost something that I posted last year or something like that, or I might post something pertinent to a show that we did or a documentary that I have coming out, but I'm not on it every day, just going, scrolling or whatever. That's not knocking anybody who does, but it has become a drug for many people, so we should watch out for that. I did want to talk a little bit about, before we get into I guess what to expect from the Trump administration this time around. Something that, well, I guess I'll save that for later. I guess I'll save it for the end of the show. So I guess we can get into what our expectations for the Trump presidency is. I know that there were some things that developed between the last time we met and today with regard to Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yes, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so what do we make of that panel? What are your guys' thoughts?
Can I go first?
Yeah.
Because I talked about that too on the Woke Right video in the end. So if you haven't seen it, go over to my channel and go watch it, please, and thank you, and subscribe. Because I'm on a goal to 100,000 this year. That's what we're gonna do. Okay, first of all, y'all already know Vivek, I'm sorry. I'm side-eyeing him, still side-eyeing him. So if you don't know, he had this whole soliloquy about how America, if we paid more attention to the nerds and not like the cool people and the football players, then maybe you wouldn't need to go outside of America to, to find great talent and blah, 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 blah. Basically, you're not smart enough. Okay. You're not smart, which that's not even my problem. Yes, America's education system, y'all already know how I feel about that, is trash, has been trash for quite some time now. My thing is basically, he's like, yeah, we need to go and bring in other people. Pump your brakes, bruh. I don't want to hear anything about bringing anybody new over to America right now. That's my beef. Like, for the reason that we do have problems. We do have, and we need to fix our own house, get our own house in order before we can, kind of start looking to see who else we can bring over here. And I think that program is already jacked up. Like, it's not even, that needs to be fixed. The program itself needs to be fixed before we even talk about bringing other people over here. And honestly, I really feel like Americans are a bit still traumatized by the 20 million illegals that have come into the country. So the last thing that I want to do is talk about bringing some other people over here. I don't want to hear that from you, bro. I'm sorry. I don't want to hear that from people who immigrated here. I don't want to hear it. Not yet. I'm not there yet. And I think a lot of Americans are not there yet. We ain't ready to talk about that. That's my beef. Like, have some respect for Americans. Yet we are learning. A lot of us have learned in these last 4 years how crappy the school system was. Should we have known it before? Yes, we should have. A lot of us have, realized that we've we've come to know a lot of things in the last 4 years. And the immigration problem, a lot of problems with our whole entire country. Yes, we know. Let us get this together. Then we can go, and maybe we can read through your soliloquy about how we need to bring more other people over here. That's all.
No. Well, my thing is with that, people can take offense to Vivek's criticism of the current state of American culture. I myself, whether I agree with it or disagree with it, it was just Vivek saying things. It didn't really bother me. It didn't really affect me one way or the other. I think the issue is when it comes to the H-1B1 visa, it's simple for me. It's protectionism versus free trade. This is what this is all about to me. Before I even get Stephen Carter, I see you in the comment section. I start to light into your ass, but I'm gonna let you breathe tonight. Anybody who's curious about what I was talking about, they too, they can go and watch the Candace Owens Brianna conversation / interview themselves and see if my perspective is off when it comes to my assessment of that situation. I dare say that someone like Candace Owens and Brianna, their judgment is off completely when it comes to their assessment of this issue, which is why I put out the content that I put out with regard to the state of Israel and its history and so on and so forth. But anyway, on this issue of the H-1B1, and of course, it's supposed to be it's a temporary work visa, right? And so for me, as someone who, I have a job, just like most other folk, right? And I specialize in the production of, one good, one service. But I rely upon a boatload of goods and services for the things that I want, for the things that I need. And so when you're talking about this issue of labor, for example, it's an economic question, and it's a twofold a question, right? We have supply and demand, but we can also assess the economic situation from the lens of the producer versus the lens of the consumer. And the fact of the matter is that I myself do not specialize in technology, and I am not employed within the field of technology. So when you're talking about limiting companies' ability to hire folks from foreign countries, you're pretty much protecting, in essence, the employment opportunities for those who are American-born, who are seeking to one day be employed within that industry. Now, I myself don't know much about it because, again, I just don't have the human capital. I don't know. And so, if you were telling me that, for example, that a foreign worker is just as, or an American-born worker, for example, is just as competent, and you can get just as much production from them as you do a foreign worker at a comparable rate, but you just choose to hire a foreign worker, well, then, again, for me, the question is, well, should that or shouldn't that be your right to hire whomever you choose? Now, a lot of people are saying, well, this is what America First is all about, right? We need to employ homegrown workers, and a lot of people are saying, well, we have people who are more than capable of filling these occupations here in America. But the problem is that a lot of people who are saying these things have no real way of knowing if that is true or not, because it seems to me that nowadays everybody seems to be an expert about everything. But I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know the type of employment that these tech companies are employing. I don't know what they need. I don't know what they're looking for. And I don't know, the people to whom they have deemed are the most productive. But when it comes to my own personal economic activity, I know that I want to spend as less money as I can on the things that I need that can, of course, satisfy whatever needs that I have. I'm trying to spend as less money on those things as I possibly can. And the same is true for everyone else. And so when you concentrate, when you have these conversations, you can clearly see who, in fact, it benefits, right? But when you can export those costs and diffuse those costs over a broader stretch of the general population, then the impact is not immediately felt, if at all. And so the question for me becomes, well, who stands to benefit? say, well, the American people as a whole. Oh, really? So that's what special interests are keen in doing, is convincing the wider public that it seeks to benefit if the politicians do whatever they need to do in order to protect that small group of folk for the benefit of us all. Whether we're talking tech, whether we're talking steel production, lumber, whatever it may be. And so these are very complicated economic questions that aren't simply a matter of, well, we should hire native-born Americans over foreign workers because, I don't know, they're just as capable, because they deserve the job. Well, says who? It's not my money. I'm not paying them. Or perhaps I will be paying their salaries just in another way. Or better yet, if the companies to whom you are suggesting ought to hire domestically, you can say that they ought to hire domestically, but you don't have it within your purview or your power to force them to continue to stay in business, because people can choose whether or not there are a multitude of ways that this can go wrong. And a lot of these ways, a lot of folks who have these fanciful ideas about how to make the world better can't foresee, because people ultimately make choices that will inevitably benefit themselves. So I don't know. I don't work in tech, so I can't tell you.
A lot of these American workers are having to train the foreign tech people for their own jobs, and they're getting fired. It is definitely, I think, obviously it's an economic thing. They want cheaper, they can pay them cheaper. They get money. So it works kind of like a headhunter, they keep their part of their wages for longer than, so part of it is unfair to the person coming over as well, the foreigner as well. So, I mean, like I said, my thing is, it's a complicated subject. As an American, I don't want to hear that right now. Like, it's just like, listen, not today. Today ain't the day. It's just
because
not today.
The only thing that I'm concerned with as a consumer, again, as someone who is not employed in tech, the only thing I care about is paying lesser prices for the things that I need. Right. And that's the one thing that a lot of folks don't take into consideration. Right. There's always this sort of political emphasis on protecting the producer at the expense of the consumer. Again, that these are very, very complicated economic questions. I just from ideologically speaking, if I just had to say it plainly, I will always hesitate when it comes to determining, for example, what someone does with their dollars or what someone does with their business, and determining who they can and cannot hire. I know that President Trump had came out and said that, well, he's going to put in place policies that's going to make it far more difficult than it has been in the past for American companies to hire foreign workers, so as to entice them to hire more domestic workers. But that does not mean that they will do so. They could quite simply choose to focus their capital elsewhere. And then where are we as, the general society, where are we left? Those of us who rely upon the things that the tech companies produce, where are we then left when these companies decide that they no longer want to do business because the government has interfered with who they can and cannot hire?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of y'all. And to piggyback on what we were talking about earlier, again, if like Chuck is probably indifferent, Quisha disagrees with it, but either way, you can't say that Quisha disagreeing is racism. Like right. The problem is you can't say because I don't want the H-1B visas, running rampant, is you can't say it's racism though. There's reasons beyond race as to why someone would not want that to take place. Them making it about race was foolish. It was retarded, and I didn't agree with that. Yeah. Again, at the end of the day, I worked at the Weather Channel for years, and in my department, it was Indians coming in like every day. It's just, but again, I can't knock a country that says we're going to specialize in this. This is the way of the world. In the past, countries specialized in something that provided a service and need for the world. So I can't knock them for being prepared. But at the same time, though, Stimulus 2 was talking about how a lot of these folks aren't prepared when they come over here. And like Quisha said, they got to get retrained even when they come over here to even do the job. Do I believe there are enough American workers in this country? Probably. Does America have a unsatisfactory work culture? Probably, from what I see a lot. I don't know. It can go either way. I don't know. I just think that whether you support it or against it, you shouldn't be condemned either way. Vivek and Elon Musk shouldn't be condemning anybody for it. That's all I'm saying.
Let me ask you this, Blanche, because I agree with everything you just said. In fact, there's nothing that I would change. But just to broaden the conversation, what, in your opinion, compelled Vivek to get into politics? Here's someone who has a very successful company. The same is true of Elon Musk. I mean, I think Elon Musk made it plain that freedom of speech was being threatened, and what was the other thing? Yeah, the government is spending out of control, and he sought to try to rein some of that in. But as far as Vivek Ramaswamy, do you think he made a compelling case for why he should be president or why he should be in politics whenever he was on the campaign trail?
No. Again, I think Vivek is in this for his career, his life, his status, I don't think he's really. Let me just say this. I don't think most of these folks actually care about the average American citizen. I don't. I think these people have aspirations and goals for their career, for their family, for their name, or whatever. So no, I don't think that he did this for any other reason than his own. I'm not saying he's a terrible guy. I'm not saying he doesn't care about America at all. But at the core of why he's doing this, I just don't think that it was just for what we call "quote unquote" America. And again, his response to this H-1B thing, I'm just like, dude, you sound crazy. I just don't like that kind of stuff because, like Quisha said, we literally just had 3.5, almost 4 years of the floodgates being open, and folks coming over here in the millions. And now you're talking about you got to give people a time to adjust to what's going on. You can't, I don't know, you can't just say, we got to allow this to happen or whatever. You racist. I just don't agree with it. So no, Vivek, no, I don't agree. Honestly, I don't like Vivek or Elon Musk. Elon Musk for other reasons, but no, I don't believe in my heart of hearts he's doing this for the American people. Now, to Chuck's point, will this benefit America as a whole to have people that are more qualified in these fields, what we would call STEM? If they are more qualified, yes. If they are better than the Americans that are here, yes. But if they're the same, then no.
So am I understanding you correct, Chuck, in saying that Vivek's I guess idea was just that it wasn't so much him compelling the federal government to render special treatment or to dish out these visas or to incentivize them as far as taxes are concerned. It was merely saying, Americans should invest more in training up people who are qualified within STEM, and to the extent they're not, companies should have the ability to bring these people. Like, what exactly is he proposing?
Well, I was commenting on Vivek's little screed that's kind of sent the internet into a tizzy. And you saw all the headlines talking about, especially people just itching to see, who want to see the Trump presidency be a failure. You start seeing these headlines that there's a civil war inside of MAGA and all this stuff. And so, Vivek made this statement. He went, did he post it online or something? I don't know. I read it.
Yeah,
it's a tweet. Yeah, it's a tweet. And
what did the tweet say? Because I guess what I'm trying to get at is what was the proposition? Like what was it that he was either claiming or proposing? We know that he's going to have a role in the Trump administration.
It's simply what
Go ahead.
My takeaway from what Vivek said ultimately was, in so many words, he said, hey, pretty much that Americans have no one to blame but themselves. He talked about how, in high school America, they honor the prom queen and instead of the head, the quarterback of the football team over the the guy who wins the wins the science fair competition, whatever, pretty much saying that, we pretty much honor or we venerate and extol celebrity and popularity and good looks. And it's kind of like what Blanche talks about when he brings up and I think Vivek even said that he brought up some examples of some TV shows, right? When Blanche talks about the dichotomy between Steve Urkel and Carl Eddie Winslow. So that's what he's talking about.
Real quick, was this a tweet or was this a video?
It was a tweet. Do you want? I have it. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah. I'm going to pull it up on the screen. I'm on his page right now, but go ahead and finish your thoughts.
And so that was my takeaway from him. He's pretty much saying, hey, we pretty much don't have the intellectual and human capital we need domestically to fill these positions, because folks in other countries, culturally speaking, they emphasize things that the American people have allowed to fall to the wayside, which is why America is suffering in many different ways. And so we have to bring, and then a lot of folks were saying, well, no, that's not true. We do have the human capital here. You all just want the foreign labor, because it's cheaper. And so that became a huge thing. And then, of course, what Blanche pointed out, you had some folk who were claiming that, the opposition to what Vivek was saying, these people were racist, right? I think even, golly, I don't want to say this woman's name again, but I think Candace Owens and I forgot her first name, geez, oh peace, but Jordan Peterson's daughter, I think they went on Piers Morgan's show and had a debate about it.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like what, and now, of course, I didn't watch it because I'm not going to listen to them go back and forth. No disrespect to Jordan Peterson's daughter, because I'm not too familiar with her mind. I'm familiar with the mind of the other reprobate, but not hers. But I didn't watch it. So about it being, racial or so on. Again, for me, I didn't think of it that way. It wasn't that sensational for me. It's just kind of like Vivek being Vivek. I looked at it more from an economic standpoint, and I tried to put my Von Mises or my Milton Friedman hat on, and I had to ask myself, with respect to this issue of foreign labor, what would Milton Friedman say? And so for me, I'm looking at this issue completely from an economic point of view, and nothing else. I think a lot of the concerns that people have are for maybe for national security, or maybe for the further dilution of American culture. I don't know how much H-1B1 and temporary work visas, how much of an effect that has on American culture. So that's something that I would love to hear a person who has an opinion about it share, so I can try to unpack it. But I'm looking at this solely from an economic standpoint and nothing else. When it comes to, because for me, this is another example of protectionism. And as a general principle, I'm opposed to it. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Yeah. So I have the tweet here. I'm going to pull it up real quick. Here it is. Okay.
It's funny, Chad, because it's sort of like it's like unionism, right? We're just not calling it that. It's precisely what it is.
But I think the fact that it's foreign, that's the thing, because I look at it from a biblical perspective. I'm like, okay, God tells us to take care of our own house first, before we go out to take care of other people. Like I understand the economics part of it, but
what does that mean? Take care of your own. What does that mean?
That means that you got to make sure your own home is good.
Now, are we talking consumers, or are we talking about producers?
We're talking about,
because if
you're talking about both. You have to, because there's some producers, and in America, there's some producers and there's some consumers. And
Yeah, real quick. Let's go ahead and
Go
read
ahead,
this.
go
This is the reason. This is Vivek. He posted this. He says the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over quote native unquote Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit or a lazy and wrong explanation, or which is a lazy and wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers, and if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. And he says the truth is our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college; it starts young. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ. Olympiad champ, or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World or Zach and Slater from Screech and Saved by the Bell or Stefan from Steve Urkel and Family Matters Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. Fact, I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity and their kids went on to become widely successful STEM graduates. More movies like Whiplash, fewer returns of Friends, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers, more weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV, more creating, less chilling, more extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall. Most normal American parents look skeptically at, quote, those kinds of parents, unquote. More normal American kids view those kinds of kids with scorn. If you grow up aspiring to normalcy, normalcy is what you will achieve. Now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s or even now who raise their kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. Normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our asses handed to us by China. This can be our Sputnik moment. We've awakened from a slumber before, and we can do it again. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up. A culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. That's the work we have cut out for ourselves, rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence. I'm confident we can do it. So that was a tweet, and I'm sure there were other accompanying tweets that I'm not going to get into right now. But I mean, based upon what he was saying, I see no fault in what he's saying. I agree with those sentiments, and it's the very reason. I mean, I've agreed with those sentiments since I was 18, 19 years old. This is why I made the decision at 19 that if I ever had kids, they'd be homeschooled. And you know, you get the, and I'm sure you do too, Quisha, you get the trope of, well, what about socialization, and what about, you know, friends and all the other things that Americans hold near and dear to child rearing. My values are not the same as many Americans. It's unfortunate to say. But again, in that tweet, I didn't really see any kind of proposition as far as, you know, bringing more Indians over to the United States. That proposition may have been made elsewhere apart from that tweet. But it goes back to, once again, my question as to, you know, why did Vivek decide to venture into politics? What's his end goal? He kind of came onto the scene relatively recently, We know that his stance or his position on government shutdowns and masks during the early days of COVID were one and the same, ironically, with what
Yes,
was,
they were.
you know, with what everybody else was doing. He wasn't being particularly outside of the box in his thinking. And so I don't know. I'm very skeptical of politicians or those who aspire to be in politics, especially knowing what I know about. When I look at that tweet, and I'll give it back to you, to the panel after I make this comment. But when I look at that tweet, even though there's much to agree with, I'm not so ready to start pumping my fists and becoming a fan of Vivek, because what we know, especially based upon my research of Martin Luther King and how he said things people like, is that, you know, this deception is all around us, especially in politics. And what these people tend to do, what these demagogues tend to do, is to echo and perpetrate rhetoric that they know people can get behind and use that as a kind of as fodder to push something that's actually sinister. But then too, I hear what Chuck is saying, and I'm inclined to agree with that. This is why when it comes to private companies and who they want to hire, whether they be foreigners or whether they be, native, I'm inclined to say that a company, an American company, should be able to hire whom they please. The only role that the government should have in that transaction is who gets to come to the country and who doesn't get to come to the country. And I think that's what makes this conversation all the more complex, because Vivek will have a role in an administrative state, although the dishing out of those visas won't be within his particular department. But you know, it does beg an interesting debate. So that's all I wanted to say.
Well, I'll take it back to my buddy, I guess Stephen Carter was, poking fun at me, I guess, for referencing Milton Friedman, saying, what would Uncle Milton do? So I guess I'll go back even further. I guess I'll go to Adam Smith in The Wealth of Nations. He said it simply. He said that any group of people should have the right to purchase whatever it is that they like at the cheapest price that they can find it, right? Whoever's willing to, whoever produces it, or whoever produces it at the cheapest price, the people have a right to purchase that thing at the cheapest price that they can get it for, right? As Adam Smith said this in The Wealth of Nations. Milton Friedman, I guess, isn't good enough for us today because we know so much better. He would say something similar. The fact of the matter is that, again, I myself, I just, when you start saying that, these tech companies, they're trying to avoid paying American wages, or because, see, labor is just like anything else. Labor too has a price, right? And if you say that, we need to protect, American automobile manufacturing. For example, back in the day, I think this may have been during the Bush and Obama years, right? This was during the whole bailout, GM and all that other stuff. And, me living here in Detroit, of course, this is the birthplace of the auto manufacturing industry throughout North America. And there were people who were driving around back then with these bumper stickers. I haven't seen one of them in a long time, but it was a bumper sticker. It said something to the effect of something about the economy. Are you tired of this economy? Well, keep buying foreign, right? Your bad economy, keep buying foreign, or something like that. And of course, they would always be driving either a Chevy or Chrysler or Ford or something like that, right? General Motors, which is Chevy, right? And so I'll just always say to myself, oh, okay, so what you're saying, and of course, this was some union member or some union activist, right? It said, well, the reason why the American economy is so bad is because you keep buying foreign goods, right? So you buy foreign goods because you want them, right? Because, for example, the Japanese auto manufacturing market makes a comparable vehicle at a lesser price, right? And why do they make a comparable vehicle at a lesser price? It's perhaps they can get more production out of their labor force than American workers can get out of theirs. Do they have unions in Japan? Not sure. I've never looked into it. I guess there's nothing that a quick Google search couldn't discover. But the fact of the matter is that you as a consumer, you purchase these things because you want them. And no one can tell you what it is that you can and cannot buy if that thing is in fact for sale, or goes without saying, if it's legal. I should be able to buy whatever car that I want to buy. There's a, if you drive throughout Metro Detroit, there are certain United Automobile Workers Union buildings, right? They have these buildings, these offices, right, that they do their business out of. And they're literally signs before you even enter the parking lot. You can't even drive into the lot. If you drive a foreign automobile not manufactured in the United States, you're liable to have your car vandalized, windows broken, tires slashed, car stripped down. I mean, who knows what will happen to your vehicle? God forbid if you blow out a tire, or if you know what I'm saying, your car sputters out, and that's the closest lot you can get to if you want to get somewhere safe. You can't pull your car into a parking lot of a UAW building, right? Because they, you may even get assaulted, because I mean, this is just the nature of the beast. And so what we are saying is that well, we should protect, again, protect the wages, protect the economic opportunities and the economic or the employment prospects of the domestic labor force at the expense of others, because we're trying to protect the interests of that one small group. But the interests of that one small group, we as the wider public, aka the consumer, we have to pay the cost for politicians catering to the needs and wants of that special interest group. And so that's the issue that I have, and the question that I have, because you can clearly see who stands to benefit when we protect domestic steel, and we protect domestic timber, protect domestic plastic and rubber, and so on and so forth. We can clearly see who benefits, and we are told that we as a country, we all benefit. Oh, do we? Well, I'm skeptical about that, because I think it tends to benefit those with the political power and the sway to organize for the purpose of getting things that benefit them at the expense of the wider public. Because I should be able to buy whatever it is that I want to buy at the cheapest price that I can buy it for, and that includes labor. I'm just ideologically, I'm just a free trader. That's just how I am. I'm against tariffs. I'm against protection. I'm just a free trader ideologically. Well, my economic slant, I'm more of a libertarian when it comes to economics. Now, there are other issues, right, when it comes to, say, values, culture, and other things that that don't have a price that really sort of binds the community along a more conservative lines, because even leftists are conservative when it comes to matters that they are familiar with. And that's what it all boils down to. You don't want anything to change because you think this thing belongs to you. This job belongs to me. No one else should have it. Because again, there are people domestically who are willing to undercut or undermine the demands of any one particular labor force, but they won't allow them to do so because they think that what another person is willing to work for, if they're willing to work for cheaper, someone with some lofty social vision has made it up in their minds that that particular price is not fair. Even though someone is more than willing to work for a lower wage, they say that that's not fair. So they won't let you, right? They call that scabbing, or whatever the word is that they like to use. It could be domestic or it could be foreign. The job belongs to me. You can't have it. And I'm be damned, and I'm going to make sure you don't do it, while simultaneously demanding that my employer pay me what it is that I want, even though I may not be worth it.
So this is the issue, what makes all of these topics hard to deal with, because we are on this side of heaven, and there is nothing, that everything is a trade-off. And so my thing is, this is what I said in my video too, like when you look down the road, when we look at how communism came into America, that was an imported idea. That was not the way we did things. We did not think like that. And when we had people that came into this country, they had these great ideas. The labor that we were getting with them being professors and all this other great, fantastic. They had a different way of looking at things. They were going to come into the universities and, here, just teach the children, teach the young people what they're, another way of thinking. And the problem is that when they weren't just teaching, these ideas, they were proselytizing, they were evangelizing. They weren't just having discussions, they were evangelizing. And they themselves had not been, I always forget the word, it starts with an A, assimilated into American culture. And so that's why we see the universities where they are. That became the dominating thought there.
Well,
and it spread into, other parts of the country as well. And it's hard to just look at it for me, it's hard to just look at it economically, because there's a cost to just looking at it economically. Like, there's a cost with that too, so it's a hard thing to, and I get it. Like, this is what I want to pay. And I agree, because I don't want anybody telling me, where I can't shop or I don't think that we should have, I think businesses should be allowed to put a sign on the door that says no blacks or no whites or whatever. I think people should be able to run their businesses pretty much how they want to. Obviously, we have to have laws and we have to have laws and rules that we agree upon for these things to function. But where does that line? Where do you draw the line? Because there has to be some boundary. Because and that's where you get into, well, this group thinks that the boundary, you're going to take advantage, so now we're going to put all these regulations on your business. Well, this group thinks that you don't pay enough, or you got slave labor wages, when they've come into an agreement with those things. But I think that's where it is. To me, this is the part where we're working out that agreement as a society. Okay, what is this thing going to look like when we just had 20 million people just come over here? We have to be able to have these conversations, so that, because there has to be agreement. How can we get along if we don't agree? So that's what the Bible tells us. And so that's my thing. It's like, yes, but there has to always have. Okay.
What would you say to somebody who accused you of comparing apples to oranges? Because if you're talking about a temporary work visa, I think the H-1B one is supposed to expire after 5 years. And I'm not saying that people don't abuse it. I'm sure abuse occurs. But what would you say to someone accusing you of comparing apples to oranges? Because when you're talking about illegal border crossings versus temporary work visas, are those two things the same? Are they similar?
They can turn, if they outstay their visa, now you are an illegal. So they can't be one and the same. And a lot of people do outstay their visa. That's how they come over here.
I think to your point, Quisha, and the fact of the matter is, I mean, that we have a federal government that chooses not to enforce its laws when it comes to national security and these sorts of things.
Clearly, yes.
The problem isn't so much. The problem is my point. So much temporary work visas. Is the fact of the matter is that we have a federal government that won't enforce its own laws. This is another thing that grinds my gears when people start talking about what we need. And this is a popular talking point of the left: is we need immigration reform. We don't need reform. We just need the federal government to enforce and execute the laws that are already on the books. But I just wanted this, and these ideas, Quisha, you talk about the importation of these foreign ideas, but just to offer a slight correction. A lot of these ideas, again, we're going to talk about the Jews or the Germans brought it over and all this stuff. When in fact that, we had a lot of homegrown American, going back, this was even after the Revolutionary War, in the early stages of the United States of America. You had a lot of these socialist ideas that were being made popular throughout the United States by a lot of Christian preachers. And so this was a century before the German Jews even came to the Ivy League.
But Chuck, they were not. I mean, they weren't in the university spreading it. See, this is the thing when you put it in a school, you have guaranteed customers. Let's just say you have guaranteed customers that you can evangelize to every single, not every day, but let's just say 5 days a week. It was a different thing. That school, that way of pushing it into society was a German thing that did come from outside of America. Of course, there's nothing new under the sun. I'm not saying that there weren't any Americans that didn't believe in these socialist ideas and maybe heard. Of course. What I'm saying is when it came into the universities, those people, those Americans then went on to they bought it hook, line, and sinker, and then they went to teach it themselves. And then because they believed it so fervently, they went on and worked in the politics and in every other major institution and further pushed these ideas. It's
when it comes to the issue of trade, we're talking these, just asymmetrical exchange rates when talking about different types of currency. And I mean, there are a lot of things that a lot of folks who jumped into the fray when it came to this conversation about the H-1B1, a lot of the things that they just didn't take into account. Yeah. But
you keep saying H-1B1. I think it's H-1B.
H-1B is there's no one. There's no H-1B1. It's just H-1B.
I think H-1B1 is like a disease or something, or a virus.
That's like the bird flu.
Yeah, H-1B. Yeah.
Okay,
H1B1.
my bad, y'all. I don't know. I thought it was H-1B or H-1B1. My bad. Thank you for correcting me on that. But
LGBTQ.
It's confused.
I think it's H-1B. I mean, I do that. I do that all the time. So I'm just. Yeah,
that's H1N1.
H1N1. That's what I'm thinking of. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. Yeah, it's again two different components. Quisha, you're talking about culture, values versus economics, things that we label with the price, for the purpose of organizing society on an informal basis, sending signals to disparate people about where certain resources have to be allocated based upon where there's the highest demand for certain resources that have a multitude of uses but are finite in the amount we have at our disposal. And so that's what the whole pricing system does. And so you have that, but then there's also this sort of untouchable phenomenon over here, because not only are human beings producers of commodities that have prices, but we're also producers of values and culture as well. And there's a delicate balance that we have to strike. And again, I think if more people understood the importance from a conservative standpoint on the unsellable nature of our freedoms and of our values and so on and so forth, then we wouldn't have so many of these economic discussions, because unfortunately that has kind of taken the place of a lot of issues that should remain, I guess, relegated to the sphere of culture and values and mores, etc.
Well, so are you saying that you don't think that economics and culture are two different things and they don't ever?
No, I mean, I'm saying that they can cross, but in terms of what makes for a community, what makes a community. You see, when I say, I forgot, I think it was Robert Conquest who said that everyone is a conservative in matters that they know about. Right, even someone on the left, who has a kind of thing they have going on for themselves. Once that thing is established, they don't want that thing to go anywhere because they are, it's like, you demand a certain thing out of life, right? Because if, say, for example, if you have a job and that job pays you, and you are capable of exporting your living costs out to the general population, because you expect those who patronize the thing that you produce to continue to do so that you can't afford to purchase the things that you want, because you've established a certain way of being in the world and you don't want to sacrifice that. And so it is our duty and our responsibility to make sure that we give you what you want so that your life does not change. So, in essence, I mean, you can see kind of like the conservative sensibility held within that, right? Because people, it's a fear of change, a real fear, and it's an understandable fear. But ultimately, economics it's such a ever evolve. It's a thing that does not remain stagnant. It is a thing that does not change. I mean, it's a thing that does change. And it's a thing that very few of us can accurately predict. We have a base understanding of the kind of dynamics of how this all works, but we never know where the next market is coming from. We never know where the next Elon Musk is coming from, where the next Warren Buffett is coming from, where the next this person or that person is coming from, or the next great industry. We just, we have no idea of where, of where it's going to come from, right? And so there's that. That's what I'm talking about when I mean economics. But if you're talking about how do we actually hold together a community isn't held together primarily by this kind of economic phenomenon I just described. It's held together by its values, a set of values which are not, in fact, sellable, because you cannot commoditize certain things, because there are certain aspects of your culture that should remain sacrosanct and priceless. And so as long as there's a healthy sense of that, then just let the economics be what they're going to be, and you remain anchored in the things that actually define your community. And it's not defined by your economics.
Right. And that's what I was going to say, because economics and things like that constantly change. You have to have your foundation still has to be rooted in something. It has to be rooted in truth and principles that don't change. Otherwise, whatever change that you go to, it will never work, because if it's not rooted and grounded in truth and reason and a principle, it's going to fall apart, and so regardless of the economics or whatever policy positions or whatever, I think what has happened to America, we have gone away from being rooted in the foundation and the principle of the thing, so that it can hold the change that we move to. So but we're like all over the place now. That's why I'm like, that was my problem. Pump the brakes, because we're too, the principles of our foundation right now in America is too wobbly to be bringing in, especially with foreigners, because whether illegal or H-1B or whatever it's called, HB1, whatever, it's too wobbly right now to be tinkered with. Like, just stop. There comes a time where you just need to stop and deal with what you have. And I don't mean fix like a new policy. I mean fix it, or deal with what has just happened in your country. This is a big deal. These 20 million people, that's a big deal. That is affecting housing, education. It is going to affect everything. We just got back in town from Orlando. I had to, there was some Republican business stuff that I had to do. And every store that we went to in Orlando Nobody spoke English. Every place we went to, we were like, I'm sorry, huh? What'd you say? Can you say that one more time? I walk up to the lady in the store and I'm like, where are the kids' coats? And she's like, she don't speak any English. I had to speak to this woman in Spanish. I'm sorry. I don't want to have to do that in my country. This, like you said, people think that things belong to them. America belongs to me. It do. America belong to me, and I
y'all built the country.
Exactly.
No. Hold on. I think this is a good note because we've kind of been on this subject for a long time.
Yeah,
I think this is
Blanche didn't even get to talk. Sorry.
I just say one thing. I just want to say one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
If the symbol of your country is a woman with a torch lighting the way for a bunch of foreigners to come to the country, you in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, there's no statue with a gate up.
Yeah.
There's no statue. The problem is the idea of America wasn't thought all the way through to the end. Mm-hmm. You can't say we're gonna build a country on welcoming all these foreign people over here, and then when they get out of hand, you say, okay, now I'm gonna put the lamp out. No, that's not how that works. So the problem is that this was a recipe for disaster long ago. Other countries don't have this problem because when you go over there and work, guess what? You go over there to work. That's it. It ain't no you got rights. You ain't none of that. You work and you get done, you leave. But America is the land of what? Opportunity, is freedom.
At this point, it's caked into like its ideology.
Yeah, like you know what I'm saying.
So it's hard to rebuff it.
Yeah, so people aren't just coming here for work. They're coming to America because it is America. And one day we're going to...
Littleton that said America is not a nation of immigrants, it's a nation of citizens. I remember that because I was like, that's true.
And it sounds good, but at the end of the day, it's a bunch of folks here that ain't citizens. And they got jobs and they got houses and they live in life. So I'm saying at the end of the day, we're going to wake up one day in America and it's not going to be America. And it's going to be this is going to be end up. It won't be America. I don't know how that's going to look, but it won't be America.
But there's something that Quisha said. I think that's a good place to kind of end the show because the title of the show tonight is, after all, will 2025 be a reset for America? We're getting a new administration, such and so forth. And culture came up as it always does in our shows. And I think Vivek, he kind of tapped into something with his tweet there. And I agree with him. I mean, when Quisha talks about, people are coming and they're not assimilating to American values or American culture, I don't even know what that means in 2025, to be honest with you. And to Blanche's point, this has been a decline for well over 100 years. I mean, whenever Joseph Pulitzer raised money for the Statue of Liberty, and you can ask Chuck about the progressive era and how it began in the 19th century and all the writing on the wall that was there, and how to steal another term from Chuck Littleton, the 20th century is a story of Marxism. And this is embedded in our American folklore at this point. And so it's difficult for us conservatives in 2025 to compete against something that is caked. I mean, you had in the 40s, the 1940s, FDR's second Bill of Rights, and that was reaffirmed with King and the passage of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. I mean, like the fact is, the country is kind of, or America is like this kind of thing that's being made in real time. And so what is it that we're trying to assimilate people to? To Vivek's point, you have, like he laid out all the lack of priorities, all of the decadence and everything else. And comparatively speaking, truth be told, some of these subsect cultures that are coming over here, I mean, again, that's not to say that all of India has their stuff together, but for the ones who are coming over here, they have a better mindset than the average American ideal. And so the question becomes, for me, will 2025 be a kind of reset? I know for me, I can only control what I can do. And I know that I will make my point again and again this year, whether it be on Cutting Through the Culture, whether it be in my documentaries or what have you, not to promote the Republican Party, not to promote even conservatism for that matter, but rather to promote Christian values, to promote Christ as king. That will be my agenda moving forward. I love the fact that when I went and shot these interviews for this upcoming King documentary, that I almost said Trump, that Chuck had the smoke for both Republicans and Democrats. That Vince Everett Ellison had the smoke for Republicans and Democrats. That my own it wasn't an interview, it was more of a monologue, had the smoke for both. Because the fact is, oftentimes what happens is when we have these kind of conversations, we come from a perspective of, I must maintain this Republican position or this conservative position. And what that does is it causes you to not really be even-handed when it comes to discussing what is really at play. You tend to, and I'm not saying to anybody on this panel, I'm saying the general proverbial you. When you start from the basis of I am partisan in my approach, you tend to turn a blind eye to criticizing what ought to be criticized. And the fact is, Quisha said it perfectly earlier, that on this side of heaven, things are just not going to be perfect. Things are going to be chaotic and confusing and too complex for us to really wrap our heads around. That may very well be true, but we know that that in Christ, we are given the things to say when the time is right to say the things. And we have to acknowledge him and his word as a principle, as a standard, instead of constantly compromising and acquiescing and kowtowing to these narratives from which, from where they come, we don't know. Even if it's from somebody we like, we have to basically use the word of God as a standard and not constantly be swayed in the wind to and fro. Those are my final words, and that's going to be my agenda moving forward. And I want to pass it around, starting with Chuck. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't know if we have any moderators in the chat. We're done now, so I guess it goes without saying. But just my last time with you, bro, Stephen Carter. If you call me one more name, man, I'm just gonna have to bounce you, bro. We're just gonna have to bounce you from the chat, man. You know what I mean? And this talk of the problem is that many of people they're having. He called me a golem, Blanche. You can look up what that means, right? It's just more of what I'm talking about, and it just proves that what you said, Quisha, earlier about the whether or not you like the term woke, right, or not. It just goes to show you that many of people are of this mindset. Essentially, yeah. Anyway, I won't get into it. But again, bro, if you show up next week acting up in the chat again, you're just gonna get bounced, man. Because that's just that. This whole notion.
I missed that. I had it on the wrong setting. I didn't have it on live chat. My bad.
This whole idea and this notion about theories, like I said, if I bring up Milton Friedman or if I bring up Hayek, I'm being told that as a black man, so on and so forth, and about developing my own theories and so on and so forth. I mean, I may take something that, say, Milton Friedman or something that even Thomas Sowell taught. There are parts of Thomas Sowell that I depart from. But a huge part of, my understanding about how a lot of things go as it pertains to politics and economics and to a large extent history as well can be predicated largely upon a lot of Dr. Thomas Sowell's scholarship. But yet and still, I still have a mind of my own because like we always like to say, there are no new things under the sun. The problem is that too many of us are so busy, we are driven by passion and ambition, so much so to the point where we want to be remembered as being someone who was greater than Hayek. And so it is up to us to rejigger and try to configure some new way to go about looking at things when the old way worked just fine. The great Senator, the great Senator, Arizona Senator Barry Goldwater once defined conservatism as or defined it as, how did he say it? He defined conservatism as we look at old solutions to new problems It's not the fact that certain things just go out of style, right? There's a reason why to this day we still talk about Hayek, or we still talk about even going back as far back as someone like Aristotle. There's a reason why. I mean, for crying out loud, are the 10 Commandments old? Because they're old, do we dispense with them? Because someone said something a long time ago, that means it's passe, it's old. We have to come up with new theories now because that's old. Well, conservatism is, again, looking at old answers and old solutions to modern day problems. And I guarantee you that if you have a problem today, the answer is somewhere back there. The answer is somewhere there. And it's something that I want to bring up when talking about Chad. And I didn't mention this during the filming of the documentary. And I wanted to mention this, but I didn't. And because Quisha talked about this issue of citizenship and of culture. And Blanchard talked about the Statue of Liberty and, bring us your sick and, this, that, and the third. Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword, and it requires a lot of inquiry into this idea of an allegiance to one's country. Because, again, we talk about, for example, the Pledge of Allegiance. I know a lot of folks are upset because kids don't say the Pledge of Allegiance in class anymore, right? It just goes to show you, again, the intellectual laziness of a lot of conservatives, because if you were to ask many of them, they would tell you that the Pledge of Allegiance is a good thing, right? It's good to have an allegiance to country. But the fact of the matter is that, of course, the Pledge of Allegiance was written and published in 1892 by who? A man by the name of Francis Bellamy. Who was Francis Bellamy? Francis Bellamy was a Baptist minister. But not only was Francis Bellamy a Baptist minister, he was also what they called a Christian socialist. So he was an American-born minister who was, in fact, a leftist who wrote the Pledge of Allegiance. And the original iteration of or version of the Pledge of Allegiance was missing the word under God. When the words under God were put into the Pledge of Allegiance, many of people objected to it, including his own daughter, because that's not what Francis Bellamy would have said, because there was no mention of God in the Pledge of Allegiance, because, again, Francis Bellamy was a leftist. But many of conservatives would tell you the Pledge of Allegiance is a good thing. Now, why he wrote it, what was his purpose? Don't have time to get into all of that, but it's something to consider, and it's something to think about, because all things are not, in fact, as they seem. And so what do I expect to see in 2025? I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting. I said before in last season that I have there are some developments I'm seeing within the so-called right that I find very troubling. And we'll just see. Of course, you're not going to get everything that you want to get out of an administration. Of course, this is not, Trump is the end all be all, or, we're not team MAGA here on this panel. But yeah, we shall see. Just put it that way. It's going to be an interesting year. But I have my eyes open for what Trump does, especially when it comes to some of the, economic measures and things of that nature that I'm noticing starting to boil. So we'll just see what happens. Quisha, what you say?
Well, I want to let Blanche go ahead, because I feel like I haven't heard much from him tonight.
So Stephen Carter said that I said not unlike a golem. I did not call you a golem.
Oh, okay. I'm not unlike one, but you didn't say I was one. All right, got it. Get that book. Get it off the screen, man.
I'm not unlike. I don't get it.
Quisha. I'm not calling you a bee. I'm just saying that you're not unlike one.
Yeah, that's what is he trying to be funny? Like, why? I don't.
It's like taking the long way around to an insult.
Right. No, I'm just like, you gonna say, what's up with the people who want to insult and send money? If you haven't gotten the memo, we like money over here. So okay, all right, go ahead, Blanche. You want to go ahead and I can go. I don't.
Go ahead, Quisha, because I don't really understand. Go ahead.
Well, first
my
of all,
bad, but I thought Blanchard went already. That's why I called on you, Quisha. I thought Blanche went already. My bad.
Oh, no worries. Did you? I just want to say I'm happy to see y'all's beautiful faces. I love y'all. To the chat, glad to be back. Glad to see you guys in the chat. even the haters, you know, you can't stop what God is doing over here. So go ahead and keep on hating, boo. Just do what you do. But 2025, I think it's going to be wild. I think we're going to have a lot of great Sunday shows. Let's just say, I mean, it's already crazy. Trump hasn't even taken office yet. And, you know, we got, you know, people are trying to say that he's, you know, he's being too friendly with Elon, and you know, he wasn't talking about the visa thing, and now he is, or he wasn't saying he was going to do XYZ, and now he's saying he's going to do XYZ. Y'all know how Trump is. Like, Trump, let's see what he actually does. Let's see what he actually does. But I think from, you know, the left, and I don't think they're done being psychotic. I do think Barack Obama is trying to push away from the far left. I do. Did y'all see his speech that he did? I'm gonna do a video about this. But the speech that he did at, gosh, what was it? It was I think it was at his center, the Obama Foundation.
Over pluralism.
Yes. If you listen to what he's saying, it sounds like he's trying to, I think he's reading the room. I think he wants to push away from the far left. Yeah. So I don't know.
It's a strategy. It's not genuine, but go ahead.
Right. Of course. No, I don't believe it for one. I don't think he actually believes it. I think he just doesn't want to be not with the cool kids anymore. You know. Let's see. I don't know. You can follow me just at here. I'll put everybody's Instagram and all that stuff, or you can follow us and all that. But I'm excited for 2025, and I think it's going to be lit, as the young kids say.
What age do you turn this year, Quisha?
I will be.
You ain't gonna tell you.
You ain't supposed to ask her age.
She ain't supposed to tell. She ain't gonna tell you.
Yeah, I don't have. I don't mind. I'm gonna be 44, and so I'm fanning myself. I just started having hot flashes, so I got to see what's going on. I'm a more natural remedy kind of girl, so I'm going to be on
you going through what's it called, menopause?
It's like pre-menopause, but no woman, my mom didn't go through it, neither did my grandmother. And I don't think my older sister went through it either. But your girl is over here. I be sweating just out of the blue. It's the crazy. Look at Chad. Chad is like, it's the craziest thing. You can't imagine, like, you all of a sudden
go stand in the ice box.
Get really hot. Like, you just get, it be hot. Like a furnace is like a burning. And so, yeah, no, I'm not in my 30s. Yeah. But thank you guys. Thank you.
I turned 35 this year. I turned 35 this year. I think that's going to be a good number, 35. Yeah. You say you don't got nothing, Blanche?
No, I ain't got nothing to say.
You mind reading the supers as we close it out?
All right. Willie Doc, welcome back. CTTC, miss y'all. May Christ continue to keep Chad, Blanche, Quisha, and Chuck as we traverse through 2025. Thank you, Willie Doc. Dion, miss y'all. I hope to God I can write some new music for the show as well as upcoming films. Thank you, Dion. Yes, sir. Stephen Carter, obviously, I said not unlike a golem. I did not call you a golem. Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. Thank you for the money. Y'all keep insulting. It's $10 now, $10 and up to insult. So just keep on sending the insults with the payment. Martin Towns, super sticker. Thank you so much, Mr. Towns. Alethea, 846. Great discussion tonight. Praying for the panel, the chat, and our nation 2025. Jesus Christ is still on the throne. Chad, do you have a give, send, go, or the like for your film projects?
I have something called Give Butter, which is a crowdsourcing thing. I'll post a link here in a minute. Yeah, I'll post a link in the comments. Is that it?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty. Well, we will be back next Sunday. I was gonna say, I forgot to mention this. If you all have a topic that you would like to see us cover this year, please send it in the please comment, and not on the chat, but on the video after this is uploaded, in the comment section, so that way I can see those things. Because if you post it in the section here, I'm going to miss it. So, but I do have the luxury of going back and looking at all that. So, well, cool. I think that's it. So yeah, I just posted the crowdsourcing link if any of you feel inclined to contribute to not only this upcoming King documentary, but any other projects that we have coming down the pipeline. And I'll be giving you guys active information about the company and everything. So anyway, I love you all. Hope you'll have a good night. God bless.
Bye.
Bye.